this is Joanne. Welcome to our podcast, Following Through. I am here with my co-host, Sujun, and this is our episode 7. Sujun, how are you doing?
Be good, Joanne. How are you? How has your past week been?
It's been much more productive than last week. I know we were both working on exercising and had various goals with that. I forget whose time it is to go first. I keep on losing track, to be honest. So, yeah. Sujin, why don't you just go first? That'll just be the default.
Well, I guess we'll do that until the one day I'll surprise you and make you go first.
There you go.
But since we have, since we have similar goals, maybe we can just discuss together.
Absolutely.
So the past week was all right. I would say my scorecard is probably B plus. I think I wanted to clock 3 runs in the past week, and I definitely did 2 plus 1 sort of random exercise session. So let me describe it. So I got a really good run in. I think on Sunday after our podcast, after our last podcast. Anyways, and I felt really good about myself and went into the week really headstrong. And certainly, as we have discussed also last week, when things start to get hectic during the week, I got a second run in, but when I needed to do my third run, I actually set aside time for it and put on my workout clothes. I actually didn't really get myself up until it's too dark outside and it's probably not safe to run outside anymore.
Right.
And I just did an exercise session that lasted about 30 minutes. So all in all, it wasn't bad, but definitely it could be better for me. How about you, Joanne?
Yeah, I feel like our goal essentially, it's like everyone's goal. Every New Year's Eve, everyone's like, okay, I need to work out more. And then you have all these people at the gym. And I think it will be harder to keep it a habit, because you really do have to segment a time out of your day to, exercise. I think I am doing a little better than before. I think last time I wanted to do like strength training, and I had looked into reading about like physical therapy and like one of the textbooks that people use for personal training. So I did read through that. It was getting a little too textbooky and technical. Instead, I kind of found this cheat sheet on YouTube where this guy was essentially going through the information in a very brief form. So I read through that instead. And what I found was that for me, I need something simple. I'd rather do a shorter segment, but repeat those cycles often throughout the day. Because I was having this issue of like, okay, I had bought these bands and I was doing a lot more rotator cuff exercises to strengthen that because I had a rotator cuff injury. And then I was like, okay, well, let me strengthen my other muscles. And it was just taking forever because you have to with one arm, it's like, you extend it, you flex it, you abduct it, adduct it, you rotate it. It's like so many different movements. And I'm like, this is going to take me forever because every single limb, then my core, and then my back. I'm like, okay, this no can do. So when I was reading or listening to that podcast about just personal training and stuff like that, I kind of fell into this discussion about is free machine or machine versus like free weights better, and then they talked about something called compound exercises, which you just have 5 different types of like movements that you do that's supposed to just strengthen all of your muscles all together. And I was like, okay, this fits my lifestyle a lot more. It's shorter and I can do this throughout the day just in like a few 2 or 3 reps. And let me just pull some of the ones out. So, I mean, sometimes people just call full body workouts. Some people call it compound exercises. And these are the typical exercises that you see people doing at the gym. Like, there's a reason why they do it. And I was like, this makes sense. Like, when you go to a personal trainer, the first thing they usually want you to do are these. And like, essentially, you need a pushing motion, a pulling motion. So like a pushing one will be, for instance, like bench pressing or like, I don't know, push-ups. A pulling motion, doing pull-ups as an example. And there's different variations of this. And then there's uh they call it like a hinge motion where you're using your hips to pick up something, so you're strengthening the back part. And they call that deadlifts, where you see people just
Mm.
pulling up a barbell just to their hip height. That's that hinge motion. And then lunges, like doing lunges, and then squats. So these are just the 5 different motions. I was like, okay, I can do this. So I did like 2 days of these, and they tell you to rest in between because if you're breaking down some muscles, you're gonna need some time to build it back up or like recover. So yeah, I feel like this is a good start. I don't have to do this every day, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Probably I'll end up doing 2 because I don't want to get too bulky. Um, and then with my cardio, which is really short. And then one other thing I wanted to add on is actually incorporating yoga as well. Because strength training doesn't necessarily help you with endurance or flexibility. And so I just wanted to make sure that my body's not just like this bulky dude who can't like, you know, you've seen those people who are like all muscle and they can barely like run or they can barely reach over, you know? So
Yeah, the ones that can't put their arms down,
yeah,
arms usually on the floating on the side, and that's like the most they can close their arms.
exactly.
Can I get close? Yeah, no, I totally see that, and I think it resonates with me because I think just anecdotally, of course, I'm not an expert or anything, but when I work one part of the muscle, the counter muscle, that tends to doesn't get worked, and if I
Right.
do, yeah, and I think yoga does that too. When you do an exercise that works it on a opposite way, the
Right.
other side of the muscle gets worked out too. So it makes a lot of sense. It seems very logical. So really nice.
Yeah,
And
it's
squats. Oh my gosh, squats. Do squats. If nothing else, do squats.
and you know what I was reading is that you don't have to do like 50 squats all at once. Like they said like 10 to 15 is good enough, but just like repeat those cycles like 3 to 4 times.
Yeah.
So, and I only did like 2 reps and I was like, oh, I'm already feeling it. So, um, yeah, I think strength training isn't as hard as we think. I actually think the other stuff like cardio and like the flexibility like yoga is a lot harder.
Yeah, I think yoga is also a good way to really sort of organize your spirit.
Yes.
In the sense that, it's like a meditation. It's not completely meditation, but it really helps you in the sense that you can be more mindful of your body because
Yeah.
you do the poses. I think I feel that way. I think people do as well. When you do the yoga poses, when you have to stretch your arm out or like do your tree pose or whatever, you do have to mindfully get your body to go to that pose, and
Mm-hmm.
if you don't focus, you'll fall over easily. So it helps with focus as well.
Yeah, I like to think of it as like your mind endurance. Like that pose that you're sitting for like whatever, just 5 seconds. It is mentally painful. I mean, physically it's not too bad, but mentally it's like I have such an ADD mind. I just can't slow down. So I think it'll be good to incorporate that also.
Ah, I like it, mind endurance. You want to work your mind and body together. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that kind
That's
of
cool.
branches into like next week's goal for me because mine is
Yeah.
kind of a continuation of this a little bit. But what do you have as your goal for next week?
For next week, so let me tell you what I got interested in recently.
Yeah.
So growing up, I didn't like poetry. When I had to read poems at school, I had zero interest. In fact, maybe negative interest. I didn't really like it. It was repulsive, and I didn't really understand it at all. All right. So, and in the last year, a lot of other time in hand. It's not particularly free time, but we're stuck in a place for a long period of time. In other words, lockdown, right? And it makes me explore a lot more things that I normally would not. And poetry is one of them. I read a couple of books on poetry, and then I watch Billy Collins read some of his poems and talk about his how he approached poetry. And
Yeah.
I learned that you don't just need to write a poem that rhymes, it can be a prose as well. So a lot of these really intrigue me, and I want to challenge myself to write some poem in the next week just for
Oh,
fun.
no, that sounds fun. I was just watching a documentary on Netflix called, I think it was on Netflix, called Code Bias. And it talks about how algorithms essentially are biased or whatever. But the computer person, she was citing her poems, and I was just like, I thought that was kind of interesting. Like that was just like her thing that she did here and there, and she was just cited to her friends. But
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. So are you going to cite a poem for us next time then?
I shall. Whether it's good or not, you will hear it.
No pressure, no judgment at all. I
Haiku,
mean,
7 words.
there you go.
I am a cat. Cat loves to nap.
There,
Just kidding.
that was your debut. That's awesome. I like that goal. Do you have a specific theme?
Not really yet. I'll see what I can come up with. And,
Okay.
you know, I also want to not put too much pressure on myself. And this is really something just to explore what I don't usually do, to be a well-rounded person.
Yeah, absolutely. And recently I was just thinking like, man, there are just so many things to do, like so many factors in life that I feel like would enrich my life. We've already talked about our career stuff. We talked about exercising, eating, and I also think, reading and writing um,
Yeah,
is really important. So I'm glad that
absolutely.
you're touching on that as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
speaking of reading and writing,
yeah,
it's a trinity, right? Read more. If you read more, it will improve your writing. Improving your writing will improve your speaking, and we want to speak better. Speaking more will requires more reading and more writing. So it just goes in circle. So it enriches all the other pillars. That's how
I
I look at
agree.
it.
I definitely agree. Honestly, I think these are all good life skills that should be educated from the beginning. I'm just so like mad sometimes when I think of it. I'm just like, gosh, I wish I just focused a little bit more on my English classes, my writing classes when I was younger. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna continue my exercise routine and probably add a book actually. So just to briefly touch on the exercise stuff, I'll continue doing the strength training, the full body workouts, just 2 or 3 times a week, adding in cardio like almost every day or every other day. But then with yoga, I'm gonna be doing Ashtanga yoga, and I think I mentioned this last time. And what I'm finding is that it's just too long for me. Like I'm not there yet where I can do this for like an hour and not be in pain mentally. So
Yeah.
but I do want the flexibility and the benefits of the mental meditation. So I'm gonna find a shortened form of it. I'm gonna kind of go through the poses and see which ones that I feel like help me, um, and then see if I can put that into like maybe a 10 to 15 minute cycle, which I can just do it repetitively. So, and then add that on the days that I'm not doing strength training. So that'll be my goal. We'll see. I mean, my plans always can get disrupted when I'm like going out and my whole day is like just completely screwed. But I'll focus on that
Yeah.
this week,
Yeah.
and then I just picked up a book called Atomic Habits. Have you heard of this book?
I've seen it.
Yeah, I keep on seeing it everywhere. Recently, I went to an
Not
Amazon bookstore with my friends, and I was like, there are so many books I want to read. So I added that, and I don't know how long it takes me to read a book, to be honest. Sometimes, a lot of the times I don't finish, so I don't think I really know how long it takes, but I,
Yeah, and it also
yeah.
depends, right? So I think that I can speak. I think that I'm not alone on this. When I read for work, I know exactly what kind of information I need to get out of an article, for example.
Right.
I do it basically. Yeah, but when I read at home, leisurely, for example, my Henry Ford book, his autobiography, I'm
Right.
still reading through it. I'm not finished yet, but it's not because I didn't push through it, because I really did, you know, I'm reading it slowly to digest it. I actually go back a couple chapters and reread some things and really understand what he's saying.
Oh
So I
wow.
think that, yeah, I think that maybe, instead of pushing for speed to finish, um, it's first getting started, and second is really see what you want to get out of the book. And I think Atomic Habit is a kind of book that you can definitely spend some time and really digest.
Yeah, a lot of these like self-help books, I tend to skim through it quickly
Mhm.
because I kind of read it like a textbook. Like I just need to like tease out the info, get an understanding of what they're talking about, and then usually a lot of it's filled with stories or anecdotes, and
True.
and that's probably not the best way to read a book. Unlike some other books, like I don't know, I think the last time I like really thoroughly read a book was like The Great Gatsby, where I just had to appreciate every single sentence and the grammar, the literature. Like you appreciate that or like the story.
Yeah.
Um, but these books, I tend to read it a little bit more like in a clinical setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I already read like a few chapters last night. I was like, all right, I kind of get the gist and whatever. But I'll definitely try to see how much I've read for next time and maybe share what I've learned from that, or maybe incorporate some of the things that I've already learned.
Yeah. Cool. You're right. And for some books, if if they keep giving different examples of the same point, and you
Right.
already got the point, then maybe you can flip through and go faster in that case.
Right. And no disrespect to the author. I mean, I hate to be the author being like, they're spending like hours and days to like create this one chapter, and someone like me is just like, all right, I got the point. What's the summary version of it?
At least you bought the book. Okay, so I think
True.
uh, it's already paying the author a really great respect in that sense. You are buying the book, you're reading the book, and you are getting a lot out of it.
Very
You
true.
need to read the whole thing from page to page.
That's what I like to think as well. Um, so yeah, so we will meet again next week and follow up. Sujin, I think it is your turn for the random question of the day,
Yeah.
or of the week, rather.
So, yes. Well, imagine you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you saw Oprah Winfrey.
Oh my gosh.
She's- You said, "Oh my gosh, hi Oprah," and she stopped and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" What would you say next?
I'm horrible at conversing with stars. Actually, first of all, I never usually recognize them. And secondly, I would not know what to say to like anybody famous. But I guess, I don't know. Is this more of a question of like what I would like to ask Oprah?
No, it's just like totally open. The question is totally open. What would you do next? Would you faint? Would you swoon? Would you say? Would you hug her? Pre-COVID.
I mean, my usual response if I do see anybody famous crossing by, I just pretend they're not famous and just pass by like a stranger.
Wow, you are very respectful, Joanne.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I don't know what to do with stars. Like because it's not like you can have like a real good conversation passing by because no one wants to get bothered. I don't want to get bothered, to be honest. But it's like, oh, maybe I want a selfie so I can just show it off to my friends. But then I feel like that's just kind of intrusive. And if I were someone famous, I wouldn't want people to want selfies all the time.
Right.
So I would just look at her and be like, okay, you're famous. I have been in your presence. I just can't
Tell the
remember.
story somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, what would you do? Maybe I'll get some ideas from you.
Oh my gosh. Hearing what you said, I'm realizing that I am not so respectful. Would bombard Oprah with, "Hello." First of all, I'm gonna get a selfie because
Nice.
that's a rare chance. And I'm sure they get that request everywhere they go. Probably totally sick and tired of it. But I am still gonna ask for my share, and um, I'm gonna say hello back and say and ask her why you here, where you going, and I will try to start a conversation.
That's awesome. This is why I need friends like you around me, because like I would make nothing happen, and you would just make it happen, make those connections, and that's
I mean,
awesome.
that's honestly, it's in my imagination too, right? Come to think of it, have I run into famous people like that I can talk to? I think some musicians, yes, and definitely went up and tried to say hi and say how much I love the music um, and start conversation, and in fact talked about things outside of music. But then there was a moment where I saw John McCain,
Oh,
at an airport. Yeah, I spotted him before anyone else at the airport. I was like, oh my gosh, that's John McCain.
wow.
And yes, I was like, can I go up to him and take a selfie, say hello? In my moment of hesitation, he was swarmed by a bunch of people and he was taking photos with everyone else. I was like, I missed my chance. That is a punishment for not seizing my moment.
You lost your moment. You had to be proactive and just run.
Oh, active, you're right. Run it.
That's see, I don't know if I would even be able to recognize anybody. Like, I don't know. I've definitely walked down like New York City with like friends, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's a celebrity who and so and so." I'm like, "Oh, didn't know."
Yeah, and they also, it's kind of surreal to see that, hey, they are just like you and me. Just see them in the magazines the day before or something like that, right?
Right.
But they are flesh and blood, just like you and me. Making it plain.
Exactly. That's how I like to think of it. They're just people.
Us people.
People running their
Yeah,
own business.
very interesting.
Hmm.
Great. All right. So we will work on our goals and we will reconvene in a week.
Yes.
With that, we will say bye bye now and see you next week. Bye,
Bye.
Joanne.
Bye.